we have the second installment in the Sontarans versus the Rutans with Children of the Future, a third Doctor, Sarah Jane, and Brigadier story by Tim Foley.
And this is quite a different one in that it's quite Doctor Light, I would say, isn't it? It's much more focused on the Brigadier and Sarah as they're somewhat suspicious of the Doctor. He's been acting rather strangely recently and has been going off in at odd hours to mysterious places. So they decide one day to get in a car and follow him along, see where he is heading to. And that's pretty much the basis for this story.
Hmm.
And it certainly goes through a fair few twists and turns from there. Obviously, the Rutans are quite heavily involved in this one.
Yes.
Sontarans less so, which
We
I
get
think
a
is
flashback. We get a flashback of John Coleshaw. We get a glimpse of what a John Coleshaw Sontaran is, which we know is going to feature in Born to Die from the little trailer we've got of that so far.
I mean, he sounds very interesting as Sontaran, very much channeling Links, I would
Yeah, he's
say.
very much inspired by Kevin Lindsay, I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah, much more classic feeling. But in this, he's mainly playing the Brigadier, of course. And I mean, it's always wonderful having these characters together again, isn't it? I think
Yeah.
the recasting of this trio, or all characters in the Doctor era, you've also got Daisy Ashford as Liz Shaw, but here with Sadie and John, there's a wonderful rapport that really does feel like it's capturing what Liz and Nick Courtney had back in the 70s.
Yeah. It very much, it almost feels sort of a bit like Robot in a way, I would say.
Yeah, because they have quite a bit together in that.
Yeah.
And yeah, here this almost feels like I get a pilot for their own spin-off, perhaps.
Yeah, it does very much feel like that. And obviously we've been missing the Brig in the third
Mm.
Doctor Adventure, so it's been nice to have him with Sarah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think you forget how well they get on as a duo, really, because the Brig you almost don't quite associate as much with Sarah, because
No, no,
by
no.
that time in the show's period, he was being phased out along with the rest of unit. Really, we were getting out into space a lot more and such. But they do really spark off each other very well in those few stories, like Robot, like Planet of the Spiders. And so here, I think Tim Foley is taking that and pushing it even further. And also exploring, particularly with the Brigadier, this time in his life where the Doctor is free of his exile now. What does that mean for them? How long is he going to be sticking around for, really? And it almost feels like an antithesis of the Silurians, looking back at where their friendship was in its early days, and now here it is, perhaps in its uh, twilight.
Mm, yeah, absolutely. Because you
Yeah.
do get references to the Silurians in this, don't you? Really?
Yeah, and it's very much taking elements from across the Third Doctor era in terms of character beats for the Brigadier and the Third Doctor, where they're at in their lives, and exploring them in a way that the TV show, of course, never really would. But I think on top of that, you've got a story that, despite featuring the Third Doctor, Sarah, and Brigadier, doesn't quite feel full on Third Doctor in the same way that the Third Doctor Adventures range does. That
No.
feels very much like it is trying to recapture the era. This feels like it's taking the era and doing something new-ish with it.
Yeah, because I think The House that Hawks Built Again by Tim Foley, I think that was a perfect blend of 70s meets New Who, and I think that was a perfect way. And I think for me, this story went too far in the opposite direction for me to go. I just felt quite disconnected by this story.
Right. I mean, yeah, this is one where our opinions differ quite a bit, isn't it?
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
you're a bit more less sold on it, I
Yeah,
suppose.
I've listened
Yeah.
to it twice to make sure that, oh, I do actually have issues with it.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
there are issues I have, and they're
Yeah.
still there.
Whereas I was much more taken by this one and that different approach that it took, because it is what Big Finish do with a lot of their doctors, really, in different ranges, where they're not necessarily always capturing the era so precisely. I think for the Third Doctor, it made sense and still makes sense in the Third Doctor Adventures, but I think it's earned the right now to go in new directions with it, to be able to take Tim's Third Doctor and say he doesn't necessarily need the backup of all the music, all the sound effects, and the era appropriate writing. It can live and breathe in its own right, his performance, and go to these new play. I'm saying this like it's reinvents the wheel. It doesn't. It's not groundbreaking Doctor Who, but it is something I think different from your usual Third
Yeah,
Doctor, which I appreciate it for.
I think for me, I was expecting more sort of meat and potatoes Doctor Who, and this isn't sort of your meat and potatoes Doctor Who, because I was expecting sort of Third Doctor and Sarah, I could say,
Mm.
do their own sort of investigating of like Iron Grant's castle, and they notice some weird goings on. And I think I was expecting more of a standard Doctor Who tale.
And I think I really enjoyed it. It didn't go that direction. But yeah, different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, what are some of your other issues with this one?
I think the pre-title sequence doesn't work.
No, I was a bit thrown off by that, to be fair. I think you could
Uh,
easily cut that and nothing would be lost in particular.
You could have redrafted a little bit about the photographer, because that's one of the revelations with how that links into the story. I think, as much as I love Tim Trelaw, I think this is a bit of an off mark for him. I don't think he's quite on his Pertwee game. I think it doesn't, maybe because I'm very familiar with John's voice, and obviously I know what Tim's capable of, and I think this felt a bit like a bit of a backstep for him. I think the music, again, like we say, it's not the Third Doctor music, but there's a particular bit where it feels more almost sort of, I guess, 90s in a way, which I guess the story does sort of reference by with the sort of soldiers from 1994 coming to 70s/80s. But there's a particular bit of music where it sounds like a motorbike's going off. And obviously the Third Doctor's an era full of action. None of the characters are on a motorbike, but there's this weird sort of engine sort of hum in the music, and it feels a little bit disorientating in a way for it. 'Cause like, am I meant to be focusing on that? Is it music? Is it part? Yeah, it's strange.
I mean, I didn't personally pick up on that at all. And I do quite like the music in this. I think it is very reminiscent of a bygone era of Big Finish music.
It's
I'm
very
not quite
much
sure how long ago.
It reminds
does feel
me of like
mid
Enemy of the
2010s.
Daleks. Enemy of the Daleks. It's got that same sort of electric guitar, sort of beefy sound, I'd say.
Yeah, I think it's certainly a style that has been used before, but not for a little while. It was also the same sort of incidental music that was in the previous story, Battle of Giant's Causeway. And so obviously they're going for more of a cohesive feel across Sontarans versus Rutans, rather than giving them their own identity respective of their era, which I think works really for this little series.
I did like how it linked back to Battle of Giant's Causeway.
Yeah, there's a bit more of an arc building here. I was a bit let down by the resolution, but at the same time, not too bothered by it, because I know that, this isn't the finale of this series. There's more to come there in future.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in terms of Sontarans versus Rutans, overall, I'm still very much engaged and intrigued as to the mystery that they are setting up there.
Yeah.
And it feels like there's a jigsaw there that will all fall into place by the time we finish in name only the final part with the War Doctor.
Yeah, I think this is doing a much better job than Once and Future. I think
Yeah, definitely feels that way. So yeah, I mean, what would you rate this out of 10?
for 6 out of 10.
Ooh, I'd probably go 9, I think.
Wow, 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 wow. Okay, okay. I enjoyed the character beats. I think it was nice to get more of an antagonist, and I can't say the word,
Antagonistic.
antagonistic third Doctor in it.
Uh,
That was great to sort of have more of that abrasive nature, which I think we've sort of missed within it, which obviously puts doubts whether he's a Rutan or not. And I did listen to it as a two-parter, and I think it worked quite well. I think maybe that's another thing what sort of threw me off, it being an hour-long thing,
Yeah.
really.
Again, I didn't mind that because he's going for something different from the usual Doctor Adventures. But
Yeah.
yeah, so it is 1 hour long episode, but Ben just paused it halfway through and then came back
Which
to it
worked
to make
quite
it feel
well.
like a two-parter.
It worked quite well because it was the bit where they put two and two together. The Doctor, could be a Rutan, or the Rutans are behind it, and I thought that's a good place to end my listening was that session.
There we go. I suppose this is a good place to end our review.
Yes,
Giving it a
check out
rating.
our review of the first installment, Battles of Giants Causeway, with the Eighth Doctor, Charlie and Kariz. This has been the second installment.
Yeah, we're halfway through now already. 2024 is flying past somewhat.
Yeah.
But, we're used to it by now. This is life at this point. So, yeah, please share your thoughts on this release in the comments below if you've picked it up, whether or not our review has persuaded you to pick it up. And, yeah, leave a like as well if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Bye-bye.